Hey everyone, it's Lexi. So in today's video, I'll be doing a series review of the Caroline Faraday Lilac Girls trilogy by Martha Hall Kelly. So it consists of the book Lilac Girls, Lost Roses, and Sunflower Sisters. So this trilogy has been around for a while and it finally has come to a conclusion as of this year. So the basic premise of this trilogy as a whole is that in the first book, Lilac Girls, we follow Caroline Faraday and her experience during World War II. In Lost Roses, we follow Caroline's mother Eliza during World War I, and then we also follow Georgie, who is Caroline's great aunt during the Civil War. So it's based off of real people, real women, and it's a fictionalized story based upon their war contributions during these kind of different eras. So I like that it is based off of a real person, and then she kind of created a fictionalized story based on kind of what they did overall. And I think because it does cover so many different eras that it's a good, if you love historical fiction, then I feel like this one covers all the major events like World War II, World War I, and even like the Civil War. And I love World War II historical fiction, and so that's what I originally started out reading. So and then I was like, you know what, this is good because it introduces me to kind of eras that I typically don't really read from, specifically like the Civil War, which is really good. And so what I really like about these books is the writing style and the author's ability to integrate three different narratives into the story. So for each of the books we follow either Caroline, Eliza, or Georgie, and we get two other perspectives as well. And you don't really understand how all these characters are really connected. There's two very obvious connections in terms of the characters, but you don't really know how, especially in these cases, like Caroline or Georgie fits into these narratives. But the author does a really good job at weaving in, sorry, those books are getting heavy, weaving in the different narratives so that you don't feel like each narrative is kind of at a standstill. It overall progresses the story, and I think she does that really well. And especially with her writing style, like I read Lilac Girls when it first came out several years ago, and I kind of forgot about it, and I was like kicking myself because I reread it for a book club, and I was like, man, this book was really good, and I was kind of kicking myself for just forgetting how amazing it was. But her writing style, like I noticed when I was rereading it the second time around that I would just lose myself in this world and like the characters and all those things, and I would just totally be so engrossed in the story that I'd look up and be like, oh my god, I already read like 50 pages. So that's how you know it is a really good, she's a really good author, when you're just so immersed in the world and the stories that you just completely lose like your sense of time in kind of our real world. So I really like that. But I think because it covers so many different like again eras, I think it makes it really unique, and you like each book is different. And what's unique about this series too is that you don't have to really read them in order of terms of when they're published. You can read them as standalones and you'll be fine. So if there's just one era that you want to start out with, you can read it from like Sunflower Sisters to Lilac Girls, or you can read it from Lilac Girls to Sunflower Sisters, or any other combination that you would like. But I think that makes it really unique too, because it shows not only the intergenerational kind of strong feminist women who don't really stick to societal norms and want to actually make a, you know, mark on the war effort. I think it's really interesting, and kind of seeing it through the different women throughout not only like the centuries but just different kind of major world events, I think is really interesting, and I love it. I think it's really interesting showing it from that intergenerational perspective, especially because from particular with Lilac Girls and Lost Roses, you get the same characters. So we get, like when we're first introduced to Caroline, she is an adult and she's dealing with her own problems. And then in the second book, Lost Roses, Caroline is a kid and we follow her mom's perspective. And although the mom had some role in it, we don't really know who she really is. Like she would mention, oh, I want to be like my mom, like what she did during World War I, which I think is really, like, it's very interesting kind of seeing these characters in like kind of different points of view, which is really interesting as well. And again, what I liked about this one too is that they kind of deal with different parts of the world wars in particular. This one we follow kind of a doctor, a female doctor, the only female doctor that was at Ravensbrück, who tested on women and did terrible experiments on them. And then we also get the point of view of a girl who is a prisoner there. And then in this one, the Lost Roses, which is centered around World War I, it mostly focuses on the Russian Revolution, which I think is really interesting. I remember just being totally fascinated by that with class, and I've never really read anything from that era. So although this takes place during World War I, it's very much focused on like this specific event that was also running concurrent with the major global war, which I thought was interesting. And then just the different perspectives in here really enhance it, and you get multiple different views, and you can kind of see how people who were on different sides of the war, what they were actually thinking. So overall, I think this is a fantastic historical fiction trilogy. Like I said, you don't really need to read the books in order. If you're just interested in one, you can just kind of read it as a standalone. So even though they're part of a trilogy, they are very much kind of standalones in their own narrative, because they don't necessarily are interconnected in terms of you have to read this in order to understand that. So that's good. But this is probably one of my favorite historical fiction series. I think just because the writing is amazing. I think the integration of different points of view of kind of throughout the major events that she's discussing about was done really well. It flows, then it makes the narrative really progress and kind of flow, and it's honestly just amazing. I love seeing the generational kind of traits being passed down, and not being afraid to be strong women, especially during like the Civil War era, where women were just kind of be like, oh, you're too fair, like you can't really contribute to the war effort. And Dorothy's like, no, I'm gonna be a nurse. And you can see how that kind of mentality has been passed down to the women in their generation, which I liked. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this view. It was a little bit more of like a gush. It wasn't very analytical, but I feel like I just had to keep it very broad because there's so many things in here, and I don't want this video to be too long. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.